Oh my God, it's beautiful.
We're good. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I think we were here a few months back in this shed dedicating the new highway to Alan Shepard, who's a son of Derry, New Hampshire. Mitch, you'd be interested to know that. First American in space, and we're really proud of that connection. But you know, we just had a great tour out there of a couple really important projects for New Hampshire, some bridge rehabilitation happening further up north on 93, the 4A project that we're going to hear a little bit more about today. So welcome to New Hampshire, Mitch Landrieu. We're pleased that you're here. As someone who sits on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee in the House, we've been working on a major infrastructure bill for a number of years. And pleased that about a year ago it was signed into law by the President. We're already seeing the benefits of that on the ground here in New Hampshire. New Hampshire received a 47% increase in the amount of money dedicated to roads and bridges that's coming through formula funds into our state. So that allows projects like 4A to move forward and other important work all across our state. We know that in addition to the road and bridge projects, we've got significant money coming in for wastewater, for drinking water, for high-speed broadband to close the digital divide, for our ports and airports. And this is going to create good-paying jobs, not just today for a few projects, and not just even for the 5-year duration of the infrastructure law, but really beyond that. This is about setting our state and our communities up for success for the future, and I'm just pleased that we could give you a little bit of flavor out there in terms of what's happening in New Hampshire. We had to corral him a few times because he was so busy taking pictures of the foliage along the highway. New Hampshire's a beautiful state. And it's a state that has a bright future, in part because of how our communities are reimagining transportation and are utilizing the benefits of this bill. So with that, why don't we turn over to Congresswoman Kuster, and then we'll just go around the horn after that.
Sure. Thank you, Congressman Pappas, and kudos to Congressman Pappas for his work on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee that put together the whole bipartisan infrastructure plan. We're both honored to welcome Mitch Landrieu to New Hampshire and show him the impressive work that's being done under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And in New Hampshire and all across the country, as we've just seen, aging infrastructure is threatening our economic competitiveness and public safety. And so these funds, federal funds from the IIJA, are already having a real impact on our communities. I'm proud of the local companies that we had a chance to visit with this morning, both Weaver Brothers and Audley. Proud of the workers who are out here. Today, probably the most glorious day. They're working on a bridge, I'd say. Oftentimes they're out in the rain and the sleet and the snow. But, you know, I-93 is a critical artery, both in Chris's district and the 1st CD and in mine, moving workers back and forth to jobs, bringing our visitors, hospitality being number 2 in our economy, to New Hampshire, including this upcoming long holiday weekend, and families just moving back and forth along the I-93 corridor. So it's critical to our economic competitiveness that this highway is up to date and safe. $200 million went into I-93 in a major expansion from the TIFIA loan administered by the FHA back in 2016. And since then, we've been working on repairing red-listed bridges and paving approximately 1,000 miles of roads all across New Hampshire from that TIFIA funding. This is essential to the health, safety, and economic well-being of Granite Staters. And this project is what we knew we would get out of this important funding, and working with your administration, with the Biden administration. We've got a number of projects coming out of IIJA, repairing bridges in my district in Francistown and New Boston, revitalizing the Main Street up in Berlin. We were just with Secretary Buttigieg up there, and then of course deploying the EV charging stations that are so important for the future of our success and protecting our environment and saving our planet. This is a milestone. We're delighted you're here, and as Chris mentioned, not just roads and bridges and highways, but $100 million to New Hampshire on high-speed internet, $400 million to ensure clean and safe drinking water, something that Chris and I worked very hard on, the PFAS, and we're just grateful that you made the trip. Thank you for coming on such a beautiful, beautiful New Hampshire day.
It is gorgeous. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Annie. And to give us a little bit of a regional perspective, we've got Nate Miller from the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, who's intimately involved in our state's 10-year transportation planning process, our STIP, and he can give a little bit of a regional perspective on some of the important projects that are going to be supported by the legislation. Nate.
Sure. Thank you very much, Congressman Pappas. It's a pleasure to be here today with all of you. Again, my name is Nate Miller. I'm with the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. We are the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the MPO, that serves 14 communities, including and surrounding the city of Manchester and the town of Derry. Our role is one that works in coordination with our municipal partners in our 14 municipalities, as well as the state DOT, to program the federally funded transportation projects that are coming out of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And so far, we've seen the benefits of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law really in three ways in the region. The first is through the acceleration of bridge rehabilitation and replacement projects around the region. So far, our region has seen 11 bridge projects in 7 of our 14 communities advanced. Wow. Because of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. Those bridge projects don't often get a lot of attention per se, but they're crucially important at the local level to the safety and mobility of our region's residents. Secondly, the increase in formula funding that Congressman Pappas mentioned has allowed us to fully fund a number of projects in the region that were either unfunded or underfunded previously. You'll hear in a few minutes about Exit 4A here in the town of Derry and Londonderry. Beyond that, safety and capacity improvements at Route 3 in Bedford that will be constructed, intersection improvements at New Hampshire Route 128 and 28 in the town of Londonderry, and intersection improvements at the intersection of Route 3A and Hackett Hill Road in the town of Hooksett. All of those projects were previously either unfunded or underfunded before the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. So we're excited that those improvements are now fully funded and on their way to becoming reality. Lastly, the third way that we've seen benefits in the region is through the federal discretionary programs that were created and continued in some cases under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. In a few minutes, you'll hear from Mayor Craig of the City of Manchester about one of those programs, those discretionary programs called the RAISE program, that is already going to benefit our region and result in some transformative infrastructure improvements in the City of Manchester that we are really excited about in our region. So once again, thank you for the opportunity to be here today to give kind of that regional perspective about how the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law is paying dividends already in our region. We appreciate the efforts of both Congressman Pappas and Congresswoman Kuster for your leadership on this, and we look forward to working with you and our colleagues from the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration to implement the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law projects over the coming years. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nate, for that perspective. That's really valuable to hear. And we'll turn it over to Mayor Joyce Craig. We appreciate the work of all of our local officials as part of this cooperative effort to identify projects. And she was leading the charge for a discretionary grant that the city recently secured. Mayor Craig, thanks for your leadership. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, and I want to start by thanking Congressman Kuster, Congressman Pappas for your advocacy of the needs of our local community, and I want to welcome and thank Mayor Landrieu. It's wonderful to have you in New Hampshire. It takes a lot to get me out of Manchester, so it's because you're here, and to obviously thank all of you for the work that you're doing. It's making a difference in the local communities, as you've seen. Manchester was the recipient of the 2021 RAISE grant for $25 million. It was the most that a local community received that year. This project was spearheaded by the Manchester Department of Public Works, led by Tim Clordy, who's here with us today, and will create critical connections in our Mill Yard and South Elm Street corridor. Our projects include redesigning the intersection of South Willow Street and Granite and Queen City Ave, to improve traffic flow and to accommodate bicycles and pedestrians, connecting South Commercial Street down by the Fisher Cat Stadium to Elm Street, and then creating a bike and pedestrian path out of an abandoned railroad to better connect South Willow Street to our downtown. And my personal favorite is a pedestrian bridge over Granite Street to connect our north and south areas of the Mill Yard, which you probably saw when you were there yesterday. All of these projects are interconnected and together will mitigate traffic congestion, increase safety for pedestrians and drivers, and provide improved and accessible transportation options for everyone in our community. These infrastructure investments will not only increase the walkability of our city, but they'll spur economic growth and open up 300 acres of development land in our transit-oriented development area. When companies are looking to relocate to our community, one of the first things we hear about consistently is the walkability of our city and asking about the transit options in the area. And our RAISE grant and the investments made by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law will bring more employers and more jobs to the city of Manchester. None of this would have been possible without the support of our congressional delegation, who are fighting day in and day out to bring this critical funding to New Hampshire. So again, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. Thank you all for being here and for having this really important conversation.
Thanks, Mayor. We look forward to those projects moving forward. And I'll turn it over to Dave Karen for some comments from the town of Derry. You can give us a little bit of a perspective on 4A. I know it's been on the table for a long time, and to see those trucks moving dirt today is a sight for sore eyes. So congratulations on the advancement of that project. Thanks for your presence here. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Congressman. We're really excited in Derry. Typically, as a commuter, you see those orange construction signs, you get nervous, but those signs a mile and a half of road are sight for sore eyes. You know, it's been literally decades we've been planning and going through the environmental permitting process and designing the road, and we always ran into a funding roadblock. But now, thanks to our state and federal partners, the funding is there. Contract A is currently under development. Contract B will start in about a year and a half. And what does that do for us in the Londonderry and Derry area? It means additional mixed-use development. It means redevelopment. We were able to extend our two development districts, both adjacent to and north of the downtown. And once completed, it'll provide a rebalance of commuter traffic from exit 4 to 4A, which will allow us to maximize opportunities in our downtown. We're currently meeting with developers regarding some mixed-use, workforce, and market rate housing, some parking structures. We've also invested $500,000 in the Hood Park, which will go to construction next year. So we're really excited about the opportunities provided to us. We thank you for your cooperation, and it wouldn't have progressed as far as it has now without the infusion of additional federal dollars.
Thanks very much, Dave. Mayor Landrieu, we'll turn it over to you next. Thanks for coming back to New Hampshire. You were here, I think, less than a year ago.
I was.
After the law was signed, and now we're already seeing projects moving, and the work that's underway is being shaped by the law that the President signed last November. So we're glad that you're here. Thank you for the attention that you pay to all the details of the IIJA. And please continue to come back with good news about how New Hampshire can connect with the benefits that are in the bill. Mayor.
Well, Congressman, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Congressman Kuster, it's great to be with you as well. Mayor, thanks for having us. The same thing with you guys. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you. As you said, I was here less than a year ago with the President at the foot of a beautiful bridge that we cut the ribbon on with a lot of folks from New Hampshire. I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm from the city of New Orleans, and we have a lot of trees and they're green, but they don't flow like this. And this is just really gorgeous, and I know that maybe folks here take it for granted, but thank you, because the beauty is just exquisite. I'm thrilled to be here on behalf of President Biden to highlight the incredible work that all of you are doing in implementing this once-in-a-generation bill. As many of you know, you've been talking about this for a long time. We've been talking about trying to find a way to have an infrastructure week. Many presidents have tried this. They have all failed. President Biden succeeded with the help of the two folks who are sitting by me today, and of course, Senator Shaheen and Senator Hassan were both really instrumental in passing this bill. They were actually with us at the foot of the bridge just a year ago as well, and I want to thank them for their support. The President asked me to come to work with him to help, along with the rest of the folks in the federal government and the governors and all the folks sitting at this table, to basically get this money out and get it down to the ground. And I am thrilled to hear that we're turning dirt in really an aggressive way in New Hampshire, and I thank you for that in so many ways. This bill, as you know, helps fund roads, bridges, ports, airports, waterways. Congressman, as you both talked about, clean air and clean water. PFAS is a really important issue for many people here, as is lead pipes. Laying high-speed internet so that every kid and every person in America has access to knowledge, which is the great equalizer. The President understands that. And of course, preparing ourselves for a clean energy economy. In the last number of months that we've been here, we've pushed $118 billion out of the door, gotten the money to the ground, and as you guys demonstrated today, are actually turning dirt on a large number of projects that are actually changing people's lives. And so we're here today to talk about all of those things, EV charging stations, which we have to lay down, and we have been working with the folks on the state level. We now have seen county folks that are with us today, town folks, city folk. So you actually have the government of the United States of America working the way it was designed to, in partnership with our local partners as well as private sector businesses. We met with the contractors today. We met with the folks that are actually banging the dirt and actually turning the dirt and driving the trucks and making it happen. So this is really the best example of what all of you were thinking about with the President's leadership on what it meant to transform the United States of America. And as the President said, not to just build it back the way it was, but to build a better America, and to really focus on the issue of making sure that everybody is involved, making sure that we're using products that are made in America, making sure that we're paying people good wages, making sure that we're taking into consideration not only cybersecurity, but making sure we build back stronger and better for the really kind of difficult climate issues that we have coming our way that have manifested themselves, obviously, just recently further south in Florida and in Puerto Rico. But you see more of that coming our way. But when you actually get down to the ground, where it really matters to folks, you can just see the unbelievable progress that's being made. I had a chance to walk on the construction site of 4A. That is going to transform the town of Derry. The world is going to change dramatically because so many people here were actually driving through that town to get access to the highway. And when you relieve that congestion and then you work on the zoning challenges you're going to have, you're going to free up the opportunities to grow economic development, build businesses, build generational wealth, and then actually grow housing and grow jobs from that. For the folks that are going to live immediately adjacent to where 4A is going to be, you're going to see a tremendous amount of explosion of growth. It's going to blow off billions of dollars of private sector investment. And then, Mayor, you've noticed with your RAISE grant how you're actually taking that particular grant and actually using the investment to build back in a different way, in a way that's user-friendly, bike paths. You're going to give people access to eco-friendly tourism. It's going to blow off quality of life investments, and it's just going to change the world for the better, because this is what inclusive growth looks like. So the President, when he thought about this bill, kind of knew in his head, because he's a local government guy, he started off as a council member in Delaware, what it meant to touch people on the ground. And one of the things he tells us about all the time is it's nice to tell the story about in New Hampshire, just this year alone, the federal government has sent $442 million in funding for 30 specific projects to repair roads and for clean water and for transit options and all of those things. But you know what he's more interested in? He's more interested in talking to Mr. Weaver, or the guys that were actually banging the concrete and saying, tell me how this impacts your life. Or he's interested, Congressman, in talking to the restaurant owner or to the business owner and say, how is this going to improve your life? Or the mom and dad who's trying to get their kid to and from school, work, or church, and say, how much time is it going to alleviate for you, the specific people, and understand that we're building an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not the top down. He told us to get this money down to the ground. We did. You are the guys who are now taking it from having it in the ground to building it up, and it is just a great success story. And so I want to just thank you on behalf of the President, congratulate you. New Hampshire's a model for the rest of the country, and look forward to continuing to work with you. And of course, I was with Victoria Sheehan, who I think is one of the great secretaries of the Department of Transportation in the country. I've met with her many, many times. I've also spoken to your governor. I've talked to both of your senators. I've talked to most of your congressional delegation, and I'm just thrilled with the partnership that's actually getting this money to the ground on behalf of the American public. So thank you all on behalf of the President. And again, thank you for welcoming me to the Granite State and allowing me just to enjoy this fantastic, beautiful gift of the color of the trees and the beautiful environment that you have here. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not always this warm in October, but it's a nice day
Well,
for
I'm from New Orleans, so I'm used to it. I'm good.
Well, we do thank Commissioner Sheehan and the folks at the New Hampshire Department of Transportation for helping to set this up. And I know we've got some folks from the media here. If there are any questions, I think we'd be able to answer those now.